Today on NFL.com, their 5 predictors all picked the Chargers to win this game on Monday night. And there was a line Gambo in the story about it that stood out and I thought was worth a conversation for at least a couple of minutes. And it was about Kyler Murray. And they write, Kyler Murray is currently averaging fewer than 200 passing yards per game, which he's never done in a season before. True, his interception rate is at a career low. His passing touchdown rate is near his career high, and his yards per rush mark this season would be a personal best, but his performance is simply not translating into enough points. And it's that line, because it's not like those stats I just pulled out are crazy stats, right? It's just touchdowns and interceptions and rushing. I mean, like real basic stuff. His performance is simply not translating into enough points, and they're not wrong. They're averaging like 16 points per game their last 4. Why do you think whatever Kyler is or isn't doing isn't translating into points? Do you have a theory?
I think he's one of the most difficult guys that I've ever had to judge in my 28 years of doing this radio show. I'm not saying that.
I know you're not saying that for a joke.
He's one of the most difficult players that you've ever had a chance to judge. Some people love him and some people hate him. And I think it's very much split. I think it's 50-50, to be honest with you. I readily admit that he's not a bad quarterback and he's not a great quarterback, and he's in that middle range. And be careful what you wish for, because if you decided to discard Kyler Murray, you could end up with something a lot worse. Mm-hmm. You really could. You could end up with a worse quarterback. So you're in that limbo thing. You're kind of in limbo. You know, what do we do? I've always talked for years. You know me. I've talked about guys like Jay Cutler and Ryan Tannehill, and players of that, Andy Dalton, players of that ilk that good enough to stay with a team for 7, 8, 9 years and maybe get to a playoffs once or twice, but not really the guy that's going to get you over the hump and win you a Super Bowl. I don't know if I'm there with Murray yet, but he is one of the most difficult players, because it's not like we keep saying we want more time. We want to see. That's 6 years.
We've had 6 years.
6 years of Kyler Murray. Now, we may get to the point where that's who he is. He's this guy that's going to wow you at times and then underwhelm other times, and you live with the good and you live with the bad. But I just, I keep expecting him to make this next step into being a top tier quarterback, and I just don't. That comes with consistency, and that's what you don't have. You don't have the consistency with Kyler.
There's no doubt about it, and I'm laughing not because what you're saying is funny or you're trying to be funny. I'm laughing because it's very true. We still just don't know, and there has not been that consistency. I've said all along that I want to give myself this year under this offensive coordinator and this kind of momentum that they built in the offseason before I readily reached any kind of conclusions one way or another about Kyler Murray, even though it's been 6 years, because I just, the time spent under Cliff Kingsbury, I just don't think was maximizing the fullest abilities of Kyler. And I think this offensive coordinator is better suited to do but it hasn't happened yet. It hasn't happened yet. And I'm going to give it the whole season until it does. I do have a theory, though, and this might, if this sounds familiar to you, you can roll your eyes and I'll just apologize in advance. But if we're talking specifically about why Kyler Murray is playing decent football this year and it's not translating into the points, I'm going to go back to third downs. And I just think in these last 3 or 4 games, they have been so bad offensively on third downs. And he in particular has not been great passing the football on third downs to extend drives. If the question is, why are they not scoring points? I think the reason why is they're not extending drives to give themselves a chance to score points. Our buddy Howard Balzer put these numbers out there. In his last 4 games, Kyler Murray on third down is 11 for 26 for 79 yards. No touchdowns and no interceptions. That ain't good enough. I mean, that's not even remotely close to good enough. If you're talking about translating good play into points on the board, you've got to keep your offense on the field, and you're not going to do that if you're going 11 for 26 for 79 yards on third downs in your last 4 games.
So they're middle of the pack at 40.6% in third downs, which is 15th. But in the last 3 games, to your point, that number goes down by about 5%. They're 35.48% when you go to the last 3 games. So there's definitely some issues in those last few games about, where they rank, and they go, and they rank pretty low when it comes to the last 3 games on their third down completions.
Yeah, and so again, this just circles us back to this task that is in front of Kyler and Drew and Jonathan Gannon and everybody affiliated with coaching the Cardinals and on the offensive side of the football. They have got so many different boxes they need to check, whether it's getting Marvin Harrison Jr. on track, running Kyler Murray more, the offensive line injuries, getting the other wide receivers involved. Now it's being better on third downs because you haven't been good at it in the last 3 or 4 games. It seems like every single week that not only are they not solving one of their offensive problems, it's almost like they're creating another one. Like, oh, here's another problem to solve. We're not good at third downs. We got to figure that out too. I hope it doesn't get to the point where there are too many problems for them to solve and they're not going to be able to solve any of them, because if that's the case, this thing ain't going to last much longer in terms of their offense and how.
Well, the way to be better at third downs is to be better at first and second
Amen.
down.
Amen.
And that was a problem that I saw last week, and it was pretty obvious that most of those thirds were thirds and long. There was a lot of third and long, right, where your opponent's got 3rd and 4, and you've got 3rd and 8. So you've got to be a little bit better on those on first and second down, so you're not always facing 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8. And I thought that was that was a theme, especially if I go back to my notes here and I look at the beginning of the game, against Green Bay, the first possession, 3rd and 9. Second possession, 3rd and 7. Third possession, 3rd and 5. Like, you got to create some 3rd and 2s.
Yeah.
Because what happens on 3rd and 2 is they got to respect the runs because of James Conner. What happens at 3rd and 5, 3rd and 7, 3rd and 9 is they don't think you're going to run the ball, and and you're not. So they're playing the pass, and you're passing, and they're prepared for it.
Thanks for watching Burns Gambo. Click to see more from the guys and hit the button in the middle to subscribe so you never miss a video from Arizona sports.